Are you ready to learn about the three forces of energy and how they can increase your spiritual awakening and personal growth? Then this is going to be a great show for you. Welcome to Mystical Journeys with Jase. Welcome back to our next episode. I'm really glad you tuned in. Today, let's talk about the three forces of energy to increase your spiritual awakening and personal growth. In life, there are basically three forces: there's positive, there's negative, and there's neutral. The forces can be used in many different ways for the enhancement for your life force, for a change of attitude, even for a change in the direction of your life. So there are lots of different ways which these forces can be used. And today, I want to start opening up that door for you. These forces can also be thought of as effort. They're the movement of energy, what happens when energy goes from being still to being in motion. So let's go ahead and start with the first one, the positive force. In life, you get a lot of people that talk to you about saying that you have to be more positive. Yep, you got to be more positive. Everybody tells you you want to be more positive, and that's how you get to your goals. And yes, there's truth in that. The positive is a force that's going to go in the direction of something that you want to happen or that you hope will happen. When you're engaging the positive force, it can be something as simple as even just saying good morning to somebody. You say, "Good morning, Sally." And about 8 out of 10 times, that same person will say back to you, "Good morning, Jase." So, what did you do? You put effort in a direction that gave you a result that you're pretty happy with. You built something, you created something, you connected. That's positive force in motion. The positive force also gathers when you have a lot of people getting together and everybody's focusing on something. It's a lot of energy built up with the people that builds up with the group, and it becomes something that can be very helpful with everybody. You see, this happens even with prayer. Somebody's ill, and they send out a message to all their friends. "Hey, can you pray for my dog Chipper? He hasn't been feeling really well, and we really do need to take him to the veterinarian." And with those prayers, and it doesn't matter what your tradition is, when you're putting a lot of energy and intention together, something tends to happen. Things end up being a little bit better, and everybody's seeing it. That's about energy. And we're going to have an entire episode about energy and connecting with the life force. But for right now, let's finish talking about the positive force. Positive force can also be that you take time to read a book by making an effort that's going to improve you by being a little bit different today than you were yesterday. That's good positive force. The negative force. Okay, so let's talk about the negative force. The negative force can create something as well. How many times have you seen an employee that you work with who ends up saying how bad their day is going? Week by week, their day is going bad, their life is going bad. They start to speak up on how tough they have it all the time. That's negative force in motion. We see negative forces in action every single day. And honestly, we've already been exposed to plenty of it. If you want some negative force, go watch the news. You see all the crashes, you see all the things that are very hard. You see the paparazzi filming people when they're crying and being upset. There's a lot out there in the world. Now, I'm not saying completely isolate yourself from reality, but that's not healthy either. But what I am saying is you're going to have to learn how to minimize how much of that force you let into your system and into your life. In future episodes, I'm going to go through negative energy, what it does to you, how you can counteract it. But let's get on to the next one that I really love talking about, the force of neutral. Yes, the force of neutral. That's a good one. Not many people have really heard of that one, so let me explain how it is. Sometimes people think that neutral just means you have no opinion, that you do nothing, you sit on the fence. But here's the thing, doing nothing is actually doing something. Having no opinion is also a force because you're not giving energy to it. Here's the best way to sum it up: the force of neutral is the active force of withdrawing force from something else. All right, Let me give you a good example. We're going to use the force of neutral when maybe you're just too positive. Now, if every day you're ultra positive, it's so great, it's so wonderful, it's a beautiful day, everything is perfect. I'm just having a blast. Now, think about that. Is that really the way things are? Or are you just maybe in an illusion? Maybe you're just not being very realistic and you're just giving yourself some self speak for things that maybe are not exactly that way. Anyhow, that's just something to think about. On the other side, oh no, life is so bad. Everything doesn't work for me. Woe is me. If you're as old as I am, you might remember the cartoon characters that were very unlucky and all they did was talk about how bad their luck was. Neither of those are balanced. So the force of neutral brings you back to the center. Instead of everything is perfect, you come in the morning and when somebody says, "How are you doing?" and you say, "I'm doing great, had a good breakfast, ready for a good day." There you go. You're being positive. You're not being unrealistic. You're not being some flighty new age person either. Guess what? You're being honest, real, and authentic. And by the way, we're going to do an episode just specifically on authenticity. Definitely one of my favorite subjects. The mentor and the flat tire. Now, let me tell you about one of my mentors. He was a water dowser, an incredible human being, one of the most amazing people that I've ever met in my entire life. And one of the simple things he once said to me is sometimes just make it okay. He said it doesn't mean that it's going to solve the situation, but what it does do is it takes the sting out of it. I had an example once where I popped a tire on the turnpike. I was a bit younger back then. Money was pretty tight. I pulled over and went looking for a spare tire, and darn it, no spare. So what did I do? Yeah, I was pretty mad. I started saying a lot of bad things to myself and about myself, like, why didn't I check this car? Why didn't I make sure that it had a spare? Things like that. But in that moment, I remembered what my mentor had said to me: make it okay. And I stopped that mode of thinking. I thought, you know what? Just make it okay. Let me just start walking and I'll be okay. And something interesting happened. As I started walking, by just saying, okay, the situation is okay, my thoughts came back to the present moment. And guess what? It was kind of a nice day. Outside it was beautiful. I realized the wind was actually at my back, so it wasn't so bad. And rather than staying with the car and maybe pounding my fists, like most people would do, I ended up having a really wonderful little walk. As it turned out, I got to the next exit, went over, bought a can of Instant Fix. Guess what? I started walking back and the sun was on my face and it was pretty warm. It was really nice. I got there, I put the can on the tire. Guess what? The tire started to work and I got myself home. Neutral didn't fix the tire, neutral fixed me first. The negative rocking chair. Here's something I want you to really think about. You can sit and be upset. And I'm not saying if there's anything wrong with thinking about your situation and working out a solution. What I am saying is this negative rocking chair mentality, where you go back and forth and you really don't get anywhere. Withdraw the energy from that. Just say, it's okay. Here's what happened. For the moment, I'm not happy about it, but let's focus on where I can go next. That will start to change the energy. And you know what? One of the things that'll happen next is it's going to help. The friend and the sister. Let me give you one more example of the force of neutral. Let's say you have a friend that really drives you crazy every time you talk to them. You're definitely losing some life force. And wow, we're going to talk about that one in the future. But let's get to the simple part of it first. I had a friend of mine, and for a really long time, all she talked about was how hard her sister was on her. And I would talk to her about it. I said, hey, here's something you can do. Here's this, here's that. And for a really long time, it wasn't working. Finally, I realized I really need to talk to her about the force of neutral. I said, okay, look, when your sister gives you a call, I want you to start being less available to her. Set a little timer. Just give her 10 minutes instead of an hour. And she says, how the heck do I do that? Well, she gave it a try and she used the force of neutral to withdraw the energy from the situation. Little by little, she started to notice, hey, I have a bit more time for something else. And by having that time back, she started to feel better. Her life force started to flow a lot more in a positive direction in her own life. One important thing about the force of neutral is to think about you have a plant, and let's just say this plant is a poison plant. If you feed that plant clean water or dirty water, the plant's going to continue to grow and thrive. And what you really don't want to do is you don't want it to keep on growing. So you'd rather see it wither or die. So what do you have to do? You just have to withdraw that force, and eventually that situation, yes, that plant will wither and then it'll die. Now, I'm not saying do that to people just to harm them, but what I am going to tell you is pull back some of your energies, pull back some of your time, reclaim some of your power, and you're going to find out that by using the force of neutral to neutralize some of the things that have been occurring, there's a couple things are going to happen in the future to you. You're going to start to notice that like life's going to get a little bit easier. You're going to get more time to yourself. You're going to start to take more and more power back of your life. And that's a really good thing. Okay. Hopefully today we had a couple of new things to think about. I want you to take some time and think about all three of these. And yes, I do mean think about all three of them. See where you can apply them to your life. And once you apply them to your life, watch what happens. I think you're going to start to find some changes. Maybe by this time next week, you're going to end up with a little bit of extra time, a little more energy, and a whole lot more life force. Just start small and keep working at it. Anyhow, I'll see you in the next one. Thank you for being here.